This is episode 5, and for this episode we are going to be joining the pieces of our pattern together. Okay, so these are the pieces, and this is the piece we are going to be using to do the proof sleeve on one of the sleeves. Okay, on one of the sleeves that we've cut out. So I'm going to run a straight stitch here, and then we'll gather the stitch to give us the proof. Alright, this is one we are going to be using to design the top of the front sleeve. And then for this breast cut side, this part, we're going to be using breast pad for this bustier. Okay, this bustier, I'm just going to go ahead and sew it straight. So basically we'll be sewing all the pieces together simultaneously. Alright, okay, then this we've cut out the lining pieces for each of them. All of them I've cut out the lining pieces, and this is the lining piece for the trouser part. Of course I have to cut it short. This is just to give it some firmness, okay, so that it will be like padded, it will be firm, it will not be too free, especially at the part where you're going to be putting the zipper at the back, so that the fabric will not be weak and the zip will not cut. Alright, so I'm just going to be placing it, since this is the back piece and both of them are together. I'm just going to be placing the lining piece one on each side, like I am placing it right now. So I'm placing this one on top of it, and the other is going to be placed on the under, especially because I'm going to be adding the zipper at the back, so I need the back to have some firmness. So that's where the zipper is going to start from, and I will sew down. So we need the lining so that the fabric will be strong enough to hold the lining, the zipper, so it will not be weak and then tear when you are zipping it up. So let's go to sewing machine and continue. I'm starting with taking out the dart for the back pieces. I'm taking out the dart individually, so I'm taking out the dart for the Ankara pieces separately, and then I'll take out the dart for the lining pieces separately as well. This will also help to give mixed finishing when we start joining the bigger pieces together. Okay, so we'll face the inner parts facing each other while the middle part will be out. So now I'm joining the bustier area, and also for the bustier I am also going to join the bustier differently and join the lining pieces differently. Okay, so whenever you sew a curved surface on your fabric, do well to make your cuts so that when you iron it will relax. So on this bustier area I am going to be making cuts or notches very close to the seam line, so that when I open it up, I'm going to open the seam line, iron them open, it will relax properly. So after sewing this bustier area, it's time to start joining the trouser pieces. So I'm going to be sewing the trouser pieces. First I have to take a measurement from the top, and I measured 8 inches down. That is the space I want the zip to get to at the bottom part. So I measured 8 inches, and then from the 8 inches I start to sew the sewing allowance I added on the trouser part, and the same thing for the front trouser part. I'm going to do that and then add the pocket for the front trouser part. So it's time to take out the dart for the lower bodies, that's the trouser part. So I'm just following the same dart for the upper bodies. What I'm indicating here is where my dart line should stop, so that the dart line for the lower bodies and the dart line for the upper bodies will match. That way when you sew it and join them together, it will match perfectly. Okay. So now that I'm done sewing the dart for the lower bodies, I want to merge it with that of the upper bodies. As you can see, the dart line matches. This is the purpose of taking your measurements, so that when you are marking your measurements and you are taking out the dart, it will match perfectly. So that's where the dart line will match both for the back piece and the front piece if you follow this method. Alright, so as you can see, the dart line matches perfectly there. Alright, so yeah, I'm going to continue this on all of the pattern papers, both for the front pieces and the back pieces as well. I've run a straight stitch on this piece we are going to be using to do the proof on one of the sleeves. So I am going to gather it when it's time, and this is the front yoke that we're going to be using to attach the upper bodies, and this is our breast pad we're going to be putting on the bustier area. And this is the difference between this particular class and the next class. The next class we are using a breast padding, that is the wording that we cut the same side fit to the bust area, while this one we're using an already made cup to do it. Okay, it's more or less like the next one. We are going to be preparing our own cup ourselves, while this one we're using an already made cup. This is why you have to attend both classes, because they are all or both different. Okay, you'll be learning different techniques and different way of sewing from the both of them. Okay, they're not going to be the same thing. All right, so when you are buying this kind of cup and you see that you want to maybe alter this cup a little bit, or you want to make it a bit more curvier, buy a size that is maybe an inch or two bigger than your normal bust, so that you can take out the darts to give it this better curve. So I'm going to be taking out the darts from the inside, so I am folding it out from the inside like so. You indicate where the center is, and then from the center you're going to be marking out your half an inch to the side. Okay, you are marking this half an inch to the inside, so that you can now sew from that half an inch all the way to say 3 inches or 3.5 inches inwards. This is where you're going to be taking your darts. So I'm marking out my 3.5 inches, and this is where I'm going to taking out the darts. I'm just going to put it under the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew out the darts. Okay, here is the darted bra cup, and this is how we're going to be attaching it to the bustier area. Starting from the underbust, we place it upwards, and the dart is giving it more curves. And then before we attach the cup, and we have to first attach the yoke of the dress. So I'm going to be attaching the yoke by placing it on the upper body's center to center, and I'm just going to go ahead and sew. And this method, so that we can also place the design, where the slanted design we're trying to place on top of it, that's supposed to come after we attach the yoke. Okay, so let's go ahead and sew, and then we can now place the other pattern we're trying to put on top of the upper bodies. So after sewing these upper bodies and the yoke together, you notice the excess of the yoke that is coming out on the sides of the upper bodies. This is because of the dart line we took out. We took 1 inch each on each of the bust dart line and the upper bodies. Okay, so we didn't take it out obviously from the yoke, and that's why the yoke is coming out on that side. What we're going to do now is go ahead and retrace our armhole on that, starting from that upper bodies to the shoulder line. So I'm just going to make a curve and cut it out, as you can see me doing with my chalk. And there's no need for you to go any further inside. Just follow the marking and just go straight to the shoulder line and stop. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and iron this out. After ironing it, I'm going to take it to the table so we can attach the other upper design, because they are now looking the same and cleaner. Alright, so now that we're on the table, let me show you what I'm trying to achieve. I cut out this other piece. It's like another yoke I cut out, but on this case it is longer than the yoke in length. Okay, so I'm trying to use it to give a slanted design on top of the bodies. This is the lining piece. I've also attached the yoke for the lining piece. So now I'm going to go ahead and pin it all around. So the point is to pin it all around the yoke, and as also pin it around the side I want it to appear on the upper bodies. Okay, before I cannot slant it. Now if you have a dress form that is a mannequin that is pinnable, that you can pin on top of it, you can place these bodies on top of it at this point and then pin it. Okay, so I had to put the darted breast pad underneath to give it this shape, so that I can easily pin it on it, so it will kind of give me the shape I want. All right, well, so from here, this is the line I'm showing you right now. From that armhole, I am going to be folding it in. That's where I'm slanting it. I'm going to cut out all the way that part. I'm going to cut it out, and then I'm going to sew it on top of the bodies. Now, if I was going to use an applique, there will be no need for me to sew it from the inside out. I'm just going to top stitch it on top of it, and then use an applique to cover up the rough edges, but there will be no applique there. So for that, I am going to be opening it up and then sew it. So after pinning it, the point is to get the shape where it's going to stop. Then I'm going to cut out the excesses around the armhole like I did for the yoke, and then I'm going to take it to the machine and sew it. Okay, so now I'm going to use my ruler and follow the marking I made and just mark it out and then cut it. I'm going to cut out those excess so that we can go and attach it on the machine. So now I'm going to turn it the other way around. Okay, place it the way I'm going to sew it on the machine, and I'm just going to After this is after you have taken all the markings. I'm going to take it to the machine now and sew straight line. So I'm pinning it on the slanted line the way I'm going to sew it, and here it is. I have gone to sew a straight line. I'm taking out the pins. Okay, so now after taking out the pins, I'm just going to cover it. See, so you just follow the way. If this is well marked out, it will just align. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and iron it out so that will show us what it looks like after I have ironed it. And then I'm going to see that's the straight line, the sewing line all the way there, the slanted line I have sewn on it. This is why we didn't put a breast pad, because sewing on the breast pad will give it a different shape around there. That's why we're using an artificial cup. Okay, all right, so here I have ironed it, and I have to put the cups inside just to give us the shape. Okay, and I've trimmed out the excesses on the armhole as well. So here it is. Let me just raise it up until we see how it looks. It came out nice. That's it. Clean sewing. When you sew it from the inside and iron, it comes out really clean. So that is the effect I was trying to create. Although in this kind of design, you can also decide to cut it out completely before you place your pattern. But in my case, I decided to use every part of it. Instead of cutting it, I'll just sew another one on top of it to give it the design I want. So this is for the lining piece. I am trimming out the excess on the armhole of the lining piece. The excess from the yoke as well. Okay, now the cup area, I am going to be placing the cup under the lining piece. Yes, I'm going to be sewing it on the lining because we don't want the sewn line to appear on the main bodies. So to attach it, I'm going to place it in reverse. I'm going to place it in reverse, and I'm going to sew it around. I'm going to sew it around, starting from the underbust. I'm going to place it starting from the underbust, matching it middle to middle, and then I'm going to go ahead and sew on the line of it to keep it to be a part of the lining piece. So while pinning it, make sure that the both cups meet each other at the top there, they match, and then also do well to pull it as you are pinning it so that it will not be folded, so that the fabric will not be folded around the cup. Okay, the point is to make sure that the fabric is not folded around the cup. So I'm going to go ahead and sew it all around on the down part, leaving the upper side open. Okay, so this is it. I've attached this one. Let me turn it inside out so that you see, make sure it is not folded around the cup area. Okay, all right, so let's do the next one. I'm also going to go ahead and gently sew, and as you can see, I am matching the cups. The cups are matching each other as I am sewing it. Okay, so now you get what we're trying to achieve, and this is it. So this is how it's going to appear from the outside, like this, and the boob sits inside here. Okay, so this part is done. It's time to do the facing of the dress. We're going to be facing it. So placing the lining piece on top of the main fabric, we're just going to go ahead and sew the neckline, and then turn it over and top stitch it. And in top stitching the neckline, I decided to put a little bit of the hemming gum. Okay, put a little bit of the hemming gum around it while I top stitch it, so that when I iron it, it will help to keep the neckline laying perfectly. Okay, also don't forget to give it notches before you sew. Okay, so now I am going to start joining the lower bodies to the upper bodies. Let's start with the front lower bodies. First, we're going to be attaching the pockets. So the pocket pieces, I'm going to be labeling one L, that's for the left, and the other one right. You know, there are two pieces for each side of the pocket. So the ones I'm going to be leaving out, I'm leaving this one L that I'm for the left, so I will know that is the remaining piece for the left side, and this one R, so that this will be the remaining piece for the right side. So I'm going to take out those pieces I labeled, and then the ones I did not label are the ones I'm going to sew directly. Okay, now to attach the pocket, I'm going to pin it directly to the top of the trouser part. Okay, I'm going to pin it down, and then I'm going to use my tape, and I'll measure downwards. I'll measure 8 inches downwards, and I'm going to mark it. Okay, so from the 8 inches, I'm going to be marking out 1.5 inches inwards, and I'm marking the 1.5 inches to the top, and I'm using the curved surface to try and give it the curve around the top there. You can do it with free hand, but I just use the curved surface to do it, to give me exactly what I want. So now I'm going to go ahead and sew following that line I have just drawn. So So after sewing, don't forget to also make your cuts around the curved area to help the curved area to relax. So I'm going to go ahead and use my scissors and cut it close to the seam line. Now I'm going to top stitch it on the pocket side, on the pocket bag. So here it is. It's looking neat and flat because we top stitch it. So now I'm going to go ahead and take the pocket cover and place it on top of it, and then I'm going to be sewing with 1/2 inch starting from the top and go all the way around to where we stopped sewing the pocket to the body. So now that we attached the pocket cover, what I'm doing now is to place it, to arrange it on the bodies, so I can just top stitch it exactly around the sewing allowance. That's where we are going to be starting to attach the front to the back part. Okay, so I'll do the same thing for the top part, just to keep the pockets not lying around, so it will just stay as part of the trouser. Okay, I'm doing the same thing on the top part, just giving it a little notch there, just sewing it together. This is just formality. You can do it, or if you don't want to, you can leave it, but I'm just going to go ahead and repeat everything I have done now on the other side of the pocket. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach the upper bodies to the lower bodies. I'm matching it middle to middle, and then I'm going to go ahead and run a straight stitch. So now that we're done sewing the front piece, we're going to start attaching the yoke of the back piece, that's to the upper bodies of the back piece. And just the way I did it for the front part, I'm going to be sewing the main fabric to the main fabric, and then I also sew the lining piece to the lining piece. This is all to give it neatly finished patches, okay, neatly finished edges, so that when you turn it inside out, it will be as clean as the outside. Okay, now that we've done that, it's time to do the facing for the neckline. I'm using the lining piece to face the neckline. I'm also going to make notches around the small curved area, and then I'm top stitching it. Okay, after top stitching it, it's time to attach it to the trouser part. So I'm just going to go ahead and match the dark lines and just sew them together. Okay, now at this point, it's time to start attaching the zipper when we are done sewing the upper bodies to the upper down bodies. First, I had to go ahead and iron it. Okay, as you can see, I had to iron it so that it will be neat, so that there will be no bulginess or folding when I am sewing it. Now I'm going to be attaching the zipper, and this zipper is very long. It's about 13 inches long. Okay, so that it will start from the neckline all the way to a little bit lower than the hip. Okay, so that you can wear it comfortably. Now our zip allowance is 1 inch, and I'm just going to gently mark out the 1 inch and pin it, and then I'm going to start sewing. Now when you're attaching your zip, you have to be careful to sew gently. Make sure that you don't match on the zipper, and I like to sew it in this invisible style so that it will appear looking very clean. You will only be seeing the zip line at the back, not the line of the seam, okay, not the seam line but the zip line. Okay, all right, so I'm just going to gently sew the zipper and pin as I move. As you are going, you're just gently pinning it. Just keep marking the 1 inch and pinning it as you're going. To sew the zipper on the other side, what I like to do is, first of all, pin all the strategic points, the joinings, all the places that have joinings. I have to pin it to the zipper, so that when I start sewing, it will match, the lines will match each other. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and sew it the same way I did this other part, and that is it, and our zipper is attached.